Hey, so this video is being made out of spite, so please take this with a grain of salt. So the trailer for the new Resident Evil movie has just come out, and my initial thoughts were, well, this looks good, but it doesn't really feel like Resident Evil to me. And you'd think, oh, well that's a pretty normal, well-adjusted opinion. Well, apparently not, because right now there's already a bunch of people defending the movie before it even comes out, saying some disingenuous shit about the people who are critiquing the movie that hasn't even come out, and I just want to talk about it, so let's just not waste any time and jump right into it. One of the major complaints that I've seen about this movie so far is that even despite that it's called Resident Evil, it's not really about the first Resident Evil game. There's no Spencer Mansion, there's no Jill Sandwich. There's no liquors, that one's important. And like, again, that's a normal opinion to have. Well, according to some people, that isn't a normal opinion to have, and if you say that, you just want a movie that jingles keys in your face, apparently. And that's kind of why I'm making this entire video in the first place, because that argument just feels disingenuous to me. Like, no, people don't want reference to the movie. They want an adaptation of the Resident Evil game that they love and played. Like, it shouldn't be that hard of a concept to grasp, but apparently it is? Like, oh no, the Resident Evil fan wants his Resident Evil movie to be like Resident Evil. What a shock. But they actually do just want a Super Mario Galaxy equivalent, but with Resident Evil characters. And if they do, they could just watch Welcome to Raccoon City. No they don't! Nobody wants that shit either! Yeah, so apparently a lot of the defenders of the new Resident Evil movie are using Resident Evil Welcome to Raccoon City to devalue detractors, and are using it as an example of why a straight adaptation of Resident Evil wouldn't work. But the problem is that Resident Evil Raccoon City wasn't a straight adaptation of the first Resident Evil. The problem was that it was trying to daisy-chain the stories of RE1 and RE2 into one singular movie, and to the shock of absolutely nobody, it didn't do well. So to say that the people who don't want this Resident Evil movie just want Welcome to Raccoon City again isn't just disingenuous, but also incorrect. It's also worth noting that Welcome to Raccoon City also didn't do well at the box office. So again, to say that this is the movie that the people who are complaining about the new Resident Evil movie want is again just incorrect. But Gabriel, you can't just do an adaptation of Resident Evil. You gotta try something new and unique with the franchise. Meanwhile, Markiplier was able to do an adaptation of Iron Lung and practically everybody liked that, so... What's that? Okay, I just got word from the streets that there's this guy named Ben, who looks like a reject from 30 Days Grace, that the Iron Lung movie is bad, and that a one-to-one adaptation of Resident Evil 2 would suck ass. First of all, that's just your opinion. Second of all, it's not called Resident Evil 2. It's called Resident Evil. And third, the thing that people are complaining about is that the Resident Evil movie isn't adapting the story of Resident Evil. Obviously, you can't just do a one-to-one adaptation of the game. Like, at that point, you might as well just be playing the game instead of watching the movie. Like, you gotta balance everything out. You gotta make a good movie for the fans, but also a good movie for the average moviegoer. You know, you gotta balance everything out. The problem here is that this is just a completely different movie with the Resident Evil title. At that point, you might as well just call it a different movie, or if you're gonna call it a Resident Evil movie, then just give it like a subtitle or something. Like, I think people would be fine if it was called Resident Evil Biohazard, or Resident Evil Apocalypse, or Resident Evil The Beginning, you know, something. But no, it's just called Resident Evil, but it has nothing to do with the story of Resident Evil. Like, I do think it's probably going to be a good movie, but it's just not going to be a good Resident Evil adaptation. And sadly, this isn't uncommon for people to take the names of something and not do a good adaptation of the thing they are adapting, especially with video games. Recently, there have been announcements for a Mass Effect adaptation and a Far Cry adaptation. And the people behind those adaptations are saying that they're making something for non-gamers. Which is fine if you want to bring newcomers into the franchise, but you still can't forget about your core audience, which is the people who are fans of the franchise. Hell, if you want an even more egregious egregious example, you got the people behind the Halo TV show saying that they wouldn't even talk or touch the video games. And you're probably thinking, oh, so it's the same situation with this movie too. But here's the thing, the director of this movie, Zach Kreger, actually has played the Resident Evil games. And on top of playing the Resident Evil games, he actually has a pretty good track record with horror movies. He directed Barbarians, and he directed last year's Weapons, which was both commercially and critically acclaimed. And yeah, I'm fully aware that the people who are defending this movie are also using his good track record as a defense as well. But here's the thing, a good track record can only get you so far. Many directors have also had bad movies, and it's not out of the question that this might end up being a bad movie. At least a bad movie from a critically acclaimed director like Zach Kreger. It's also worth noting that even though this is an original story, it apparently does take place during the events of Resident Evil 2, which has gotten its own scrutiny because the film, as seen here, takes place in the winter, but Resident Evil 2 takes place in September. And even more recently, the entire script for this Resident Evil movie got leaked, which in and of itself has inspired even less confidence. Though it's worth noting that scripts get rewritten all the time, so most of the stuff that's in this script probably didn't even make it to the final film, or at the very least was rewritten in pre-production. But regardless, I am more cautiously optimistic about this movie, since it's probably going to be a good movie, but it's not going to be a good Resident Evil adaptation. And I think that should be the mindset for a lot of other people, and not just blindly defend the movie and calling people who are cautious of the movie tourists or LARPers, or making disingenuous strawman arguments against its detractors. But yeah, that's all I gotta say. Let me know in the comments what you think about this movie. Do you want to see it? Do you not want to see it? Do you think it's gonna be good or bad? Let me know what you guys think down in the comments, and new videos coming out hopefully this week, and I'll see you guys again very, very soon. Bonne noite. Also, if there's not a single liquor in this goddamn movie, I'm gonna fucking riot.